And when we're talking about manifesting things, you absolutely can do that alone or with a partner. And if your partner is in on it with you, and this is one of the cool things of quantum sex, you don't even have to tell your partner. I mean, you can have quantum sex by yourself with another partner. It's much more fun if your partner's engaged in it. But if your partner is joining you in what you're manifesting and you're putting both of your intention behind it, it's double supercharging it.
I guess we're going to talk about manifesting while having sex. All right, Heal Squad, we are back with part 2 of our sexy conversation with Dr. Laura Berman. She, of course, is a world-renowned sex, love, and relationship therapist. She's been on the show many, many times. She is one of our closest friends. Be sure to check out part 1 of our interview because she shared some incredible tips on sex and relationship, like the big question, does monogamy actually still work? And so much more. But today we're talking about the red flags in relationships you need to take seriously, how orgasms can help heal migraines and also help you manifest your dreams. You're going to love this. This is a must listen. And also sexy exercises to spice up the bedroom. Again, this conversation is an open one, so please be aware of who's listening with you. For example, I'm not going to let Athena listen to me. She's in the parakeet mode where she says everything after. So if she says orgasm, I'll die. So you be careful too. Okay, love you. Bye. I really loved that quote that we started yesterday's episode with. Healing doesn't mean forgetting. It means finding new ways to love and connect. Is that what sex magic is going to do for us?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's a big part of it. It's about really coming into your power emotionally and energetically. And what I try to focus on, I really wanted this to be super practical and actionable. So I have tons and tons of techniques and exercises. I mean, half the book is that. And so what I'm helping people do is not only step into their masculine or feminine power energetically and even logistically, but to really start accessing an intensity of not only sexual pleasure, but sexual energy is creative energy. We think of sex as an act or as pleasure that's usually localized to the genitals, right? And what I teach in sex magic, really what I've done is collated ancient wisdom from Tantra, Kundalini, Taoism, spiritual teachings. But basically what it does is it teaches you to harness that sexual energy, which is powerful, creative, intense energy, whether you're in a relationship or not, to create more pleasure, to create more intensity, to create more excitement. And if you're in a relationship, to create a deeper, more profound connection between the two of you.
Yeah, I mean, I see even recently, different celebrities that have broken up and they say, I think Jessica Alba had a really great quote where it was like, the first couple of years are amazing and then you become roommates. And I feel like a lot of people connect with that and resonate with that whole roommate vibe. How do you go from roommate to back to getting that flame? That just seems like so, like if you haven't had that connection in so long, isn't it awkward? How do you make it less awkward?
Yeah, that's such a great question. And that's a big part of what I do in couples therapy with people is I always say that if you haven't been sexual in a long time or you haven't had that chemistry or connection in a really long time, it can feel like there's a valley between you, and it's really feels awkward to cross. And if you're really struggling with that, then definitely that's not something that's hard to do with a good sex/couples therapist. They basically hold your hand through the process of step by step rebuilding your sexual connection from the ground up.
Isn't that more awkward now you're bringing in? This is like, I've never been to a sex therapist.
Oh,
So
we got to do a session, Maria. I'll show you
so
how
like,
it works.
what is that like? Like, what does it look like behind the scenes of you and your husband going to you, a sex therapist, and now you're telling us how to do it? Like, that's crazy to me.
I don't tell you how to. Well, sometimes I tell you how to do it, but mostly it's like so the typical trajectory, it can vary and there are detours, right? But the typical trajectory is like, okay, you haven't had sex, let's say, for more than a few times in the past 2 or 3 years or whatever. I'm just
Is that common?
yes. Um, and we're gonna, or even, past 6 months, whatever. Let's take sex off the table. Let's take the 800-pound gorilla out of the room of that expectation, right? Where he won't hold your hand because you might think he's trying to start something. You won't give him a hug because then you'll have to reject him if he starts to, all your physical affection has started to wane because there's all these unspoken questions and expectations. Let's just take sex off the table. We're going to rebuild from the ground up. So this week, until we meet next week, I want you to do a kissing game. Okay. So you kiss. So there's no expectation of sex. It's not allowed. And you're going to spend 15 minutes at least twice this week with no technology, talking, cuddling. I'll give you some discussion topics if you don't know what to talk about. And you're just going to talk, cuddle, listen to some music, 15 minutes twice. And on one of those occasions, I want you to play this kissing game where you kiss him the way you most love to be kissed and kiss that way for a while. Then you kiss her the way you most love to be kissed and kiss that way for a while and just kiss for a while, 5 minutes. And it may feel awkward. And if you cringe and laugh, that's okay. It's your homework. And now, we'll see what happens next week. And so we kind of take it week by week. And then maybe down the line, we do these sensory exercises where they're touching each other. So I'm just telling them their homework. They do their homework. They come back and they say, you know what? I noticed some arousal. I kind of wanted to have sex, but we weren't allowed. Or, once the pressure is taken off, I have so many couples who I take sex off the table and I tell them they're not allowed to have sex. And I maybe give them an assignment like that. And the next week they come back and they're like, the one who didn't want the sex is like, oops, we cheated. Because without that pressure or expectation, I was able to allow myself to kind of get into it. And now that we're spending more time together, we're putting our attention on this, I'm feeling more connected. And so, for women especially, a huge part of our desire is and the research, I did a huge study on this years ago, and there have been other research since then, that it's the emotional connection we feel to the person that we're having sex with that most significantly predicts our satisfaction and our willingness to have sex. So if she's feeling supported and connected and the pressure off and she's able to kind of sink into and she has the opportunity and the space to sink into her sensuality a little bit, very often that desire will start percolating to the surface. But that you don't need to go to sex therapy to get your sex life back on track. That's for couples who are really struggling to do so. A lot of the exercises that I share in the book are non-sexual ones around, just really connecting with each other and connecting with your own sexuality. Because I find a lot of times when couples aren't having sex, one or both of them, because of all the distractions and stress and parenting and everything else, have disconnected from their sexual energy. And it's really fun. It's not performative. It's not swinging from the chandeliers, although you absolutely could if you wanted to. It's really about learning to work with the physical energy and the atomic energy that sexual arousal can create, which is the highest frequency energy our body can hold physically. So it's very, very, very powerful and healing energy.
I was just going to say, it sounds very healing.
Very healing. And I mean, think about it. If and the research, like in JAMA, in the Journal of American Medical Association, this has been published many times, that orgasms help with migraines. How cool is that? It's a great pain reliever. It can be extremely emotionally healing when used the same way, a healthy way, I should say. And it is emotionally and spiritually powerful and healing. It's the most powerful energy there is, that holding that, if you think about the point of orgasm or extreme sexual pleasure, that is the closest to physical bliss energetically our bodies can hold.
Wow. So is it the same if it's with a partner or by yourself?
In terms of the healing capacity, physically, no. In terms of the emotional healing capacity, often with a partner, especially if your wounds are around relational ones. It can be extremely, even more powerful to be with a partner, but it's not required. And when we're talking about manifesting things and creating major momentum behind what you're wanting to manifest, you absolutely can do that alone or with a partner. And if your partner is in on it with you, and this is one of the cool things of quantum sex, you don't even have to tell your partner. I mean, you can have quantum sex by yourself with another partner. It's much more fun if your partner's engaged in it. But if your partner is joining you in what you're manifesting and you're putting both of your intention behind it, it's double supercharging it.
So I guess we're going to talk about manifesting while having sex. So you dropped the bomb on us in the Heal Squad Patreon event. If you guys aren't a member yet, you should join because we do monthly gatherings with incredible people like Dr. Laura Berman. And she dropped this on us, and I was like, wait. I manifest all day long. I didn't know I could manifest while I was having sex. Isn't that a distraction? Like, I'm going to manifest like this big job I want, or like, is it that kind of thing? Or are you manifesting the sexual energy you want?
No, you can manifest the job you want or the sexual energy you want. But what I'm talking about is literally, so here's how manifesting works scientifically. It works with the quantum field. Where intention goes, energy flows. So quantum physicists, for instance, can't do experiments in the room with the experiment. They have to do experiments in a vacuum and be in a different area or building, because the scientists' expectations or intentions on the quantum level will impact the results of the experiment. Because on the quantum level, everything is possible. So that's the science behind manifestation. Is when we manifest something, what is happening, it's energy plus intention. So the higher so if, for instance, and you do talk about manifesting all the time, but just as a quick summary, if I want a new job, like this great job or this amazing house or partner, whatever it is, and I'm like, I don't deserve, inside, I feel emotionally unworthy or depressed or anxious about it. And I'm like, I just wish I had that house or that partner, right? My energetic frequency is not matching that intention. It's matching a frequency of lack. And that's when manifestation won't work. And I'm just attracting in more of what I don't want. So when we manifest something, we're trying to match. And this is what I discussed so much in Quantum Love, my last book, with regard to relationships. You think about how you want to feel in your relationship, and then you move your body into that energetic frequency by thinking about other things that make you feel that way, or just moving into a high, because your energetic frequency is set by your emotional states.
So you're basically getting it up in a different way.
Yeah.
You're getting up your energy.
Exactly.
You're faking it till you make it. You're getting up your energy with the things bring you that same good feeling.
Yeah.
And then setting, because you have, like I always say, you're what you want and what you believe have to be in congruence.
Yes.
Like it has to be equal. You can't say I want $1 million, but think, oh, it's never going to happen. It's not in congruence, so it's never going to happen. But if you want $1 million and you believe it's going to come, and you feel the feelings of it already happening.
Yes,
like we're taught, you feel like, oh my God, I'm celebrating. Holy shit, I got it. I won. And you feel it, and you feel like it's really real, like a dream. Then it comes.
Yes. And that's because you are matching your body's energy, which is your manifesting instrument that shoots it out into the quantum field. So there's two things. You think about those old-fashioned radio dials. There's the frequency you're on, which is that energetic emotional state you're holding, and the volume, the intensity of that, right? So the more of that, like aliveness and excitement. How would I feel if I had $1 million? I'd feel free. I'd feel so generous. I'd feel so excited. I'm going to imagine other scenarios, even if I can't imagine $1 million, where I feel that way. I'm going to let it elevate. I'm going to, be in that, like, oh, like that feeling you had. And the louder inside myself, the higher, the more intense I can create that feeling, the more momentum I'm giving it into the quantum field. So orgasm is, so there's this map of consciousness that was created by David Hawkins, and that's one of the keys to quantum love that I teach. It's one of the bases of the quantum love map, where you can see where manifesting starts. I geek out on the science of it, but he was able to calibrate each emotional state our body holds. So shame and guilt is the lowest frequency our body can hold. Bliss is the highest. Love and bliss is the highest. The closest we get to bliss, unless we're a monk on a mountaintop, in oneness with God, which sometimes happens for us through meditation or other things, the closest we can get to bliss is orgasm. And so the way and this is an ancient practice, sex magic, but the way this part of it works is I even teach you how to make sigils. So let's say you want to have a new job, as you were saying. You would write down, and I get into all this in the book, you write down the statement, I am the head of X company, or I am running my own company, taking people on spiritual tours around the world, or I have $1 million, or whatever that is. And there's a system for breaking it down into just a few words and making it into a symbol or a picture that becomes like an anchor for that thing you want to manifest. And then you have that next to your bed or wherever you're having sex. You look at it and maybe meditate on it a little bit before you have sex. You move into a sexual scenario. Maybe you imagine that scene in your mind. Maybe you're too distracted. You maybe look at it one more time as you're getting more aroused, or you hold that image in your mind as you're getting more aroused. And then when you have orgasm, you're shooting it out, not only through your arousal, but through your orgasm into the quantum fields. And I even say you're still in that frequency in the aftermath. So even if you forgot all about it, look at it again right after.
And it's because we're in the highest frequency. That means that whatever we want in that moment, it's almost like you can't think a negative thought when you feel so good. So the negative thought that you would have had without the sex, that would have made it incongruent for that manifestation to happen, is you're hedging your bets in like the best spot.
Yeah. Yeah, that too.
Wow.
You're not only compensating, as you're saying, for any negative thoughts, you're not able to have them really while you're orgasming. But you are, even regardless of that, you're in a high frequency while you're doing it.
Okay, what if you're with a selfish partner that isn't letting you orgasm, is just about them?
Then that's not a good partner to manifest with.
Hopefully we have the right partner who's thinking of our needs as well, so we can manifest during sex. I want to go back to kind of, even just like as you're entering a relationship, a lot of people get in relationships when they're young. I didn't date until I was 18-ish. And, I always thought that when you're younger, you don't really know, like boys are thinking about one thing, and now I just don't know when is the right time, and when is the right time to start? And then also, how do you really know who you're getting involved with? Like right now with Netflix and stuff, we're watching all these crazy shows of these people, the Tinder swindler and all these people that look amazing. And then all of a sudden you're either in a coffin or you're dealing with a disaster of a person. How do you know who you can trust? And in these days, I think it's harder than ever. But also, I do, for like the younger people, and especially having a daughter now, I'm starting to think about this. It's like, did I do it right? Should I have been dating more when I was younger? Should I, you just don't know.
Yeah. I don't think it's so, I don't think there's a hard and fast rule about when or how. I think what's more important, especially when it comes to raising kids, is to really instill in them what I call the treasure chest, which is those things about them that make them so unbelievably lovable, that have nothing to do with their looks or their achievements. And so, it might be their laugh, things that come naturally to them. It might be their laugh. It might be their tenderness. It might be the way their eyes light up when they're excited. But you put all of these treasures, both of you, both parents ideally, are putting all of these treasures in that child's treasure box and teaching them not only about self-awareness and and resilience and emotional regulation, but how to recognize that in other people, self-awareness, resilience, and emotional regulation in others, and how to really tune in to their own discernment. I think with children, we are so busy in directing them in so many places in our race to nowhere, that we are just like, next thing, let's go, practice, pack your lunch, blah, blah, blah. We're not really slowing down, or we've gotten away from being slow enough, even at times. It doesn't have to be every day, to guide them through and encourage them and model for them your own discernment. What I find when people get involved with these swindlers and shady people and whatever is that they're disconnected from their own intuition. They never learn to connect, and they don't recognize those signs of someone who is not self-aware, not resilient, not able to self-regulate. Or they get seduced by love bombing because they feel so bad about themselves and so unworthy of love that when someone comes around and love bombs them, it's like water in the desert, and they get totally sucked in that way, right? So the way I feel you protect your children is less, I mean, obviously you can encourage them not to date until a certain time or not to have sex until a certain time, but it's less about the time and more about those things, if that makes sense.
So smart. Okay, so um as you're saying this, I'm like, do I know about emotional regulation? Do I know about enough about discernment? Can you share a little bit about that for us? Because I'm sure there are other adult women who are like, yeah, I don't know about that.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I didn't know about it myself until I was in my 40s. And I think I was a little late to the table. I mean, I've done it since then, and I work with my young adult kids a lot around this, but I was late to the game with my kids because I was just figuring it out myself. I'm a recovering codependent, and I didn't really go into recovery until I was in my late 30s, early 40s. Um, so when we talk about resilience, it's how quickly do I come back to center when I've been triggered or upset? How easy is it to get triggered, where I get out of alignment and I get really angry or really scared or really upset in those lower frequency states, right? And we all do. That's normal. We get knocked out of alignment. How quickly can I come back to center? Do I have strategies? Deep belly breaths, the 4-6 breath, where you breathe in for the count of 4 and out for the count of 6, moving my body. I have in Quantum Love, I have a whole chapter on shift moves for when you get triggered, how to get out of your trigger, right? Because these are all things I had to learn in my 40s, and most of us are never taught, and it's not modeled for us.
Mhm.
So to me, if you want to be an amazing parent, that's what you want to learn and model and teach your child moment to moment in IRL, right? As things are happening, they see you doing it, and also as they're getting dysregulated, and there's all this beautiful stuff happening. You can see it online and in the parenting materials now about how to teach how to co-regulate with your child, right? So you become the one, they're throwing a tantrum, and you sit next to them in this really calm, you're literally using quantum love with that when you're doing it, because you're moving yourself into a state of loving calm, and you're just holding space for them and letting them match you, right? And
Mm.
modeling the deep breathing. That's considered co-regulation. So you're actually lending them your regulation until they can start developing their own. And they do that through modeling you and also matching your frequency, because our children will always match ours. If you want to know how you're feeling, look at how your children are acting, because they will always match your end. That's why I ended up, that's how I discovered quantum love, is trying to, and then I ended up applying it to relationships, but it was through my kids and needing to help them learn to lower anxiety and fall asleep or move out of these agitated states more effectively. So,
Yeah.
so that's the regulation piece. And then
Hold on that because I really like everything you just said, and I also love hearing that you who this is, your work still even had to get to that place. And
oh
I think we
yeah.
should do a whole episode on codependent work again as a refresh because I'd love to know about your journey through that. But I know that you're right. We are so busy telling our kids what to do, how to feel, how to be, all of that, rather than saying, how do you feel? What do you think
Yes.
is right? And it's a
Yes.
really great reminder for me to teach Athena because I've grown into my intuition and trusting the messages and the signs and all of that through this health journey I've been on these last 7 or 8 years. But if I look back, when I was younger, I didn't trust myself.
No, most of us
And
don't.
and so that will bite you in the butt later. But I think, teaching your kids to trust their own judgment and their own guidance rather than you're always the one who knows everything. There's a fine line, obviously, because we
Yes.
know better. We're not going to say, "Oh, do you think you should cross this highway right now?" But
Yeah. Or
um,
even like when you notice something, like I would do this with my kids, like let's say I'm in a supermarket or sitting at a restaurant, and I still do this with them sometimes. I'll be sitting in a restaurant because I feel everything. And so I'll be sitting in a restaurant and there's a table next to me and I can feel the discord, even if they aren't showing it, I can feel the discord in the couple next to me. And I'll sometimes just be like, can you feel what's happening in that table? Like, what do you, I'll sort of give them, training sort of, or even when on social media, like they're following all these idiots. Why do you follow this person? Well, because they're really cool. And then I'm like, yeah, they're cool. How do you feel when you look at that video? What are you feeling in your body? Does it make you feel good? Does it, and a lot of times they're like, shut up, mom, but sometimes, especially if you get them when they're younger, right? And if that just becomes part of, or get in a little argument with their friend over a toy. Yeah, I can see you're really upset, mirroring their feelings. How does that feel in your body? Like I can imagine, and tune into them because you'll feel it. Oh, my tummy hurts. Does your tummy hurt? Like where do you, oh, you feel it in your chest. Okay. Yeah. How do you think Susie is feeling? Should we, let's ask Susie. Can you imagine let's ask her, you know? And like, oh, let's see. Can we take some deep breaths together? Can
yeah.
we, oh, how does our tummy, oh, my tummy feels a little bit better. How does yours feel? So you can start modeling it for them. You have to slow down a lot to do that. But I think it's the most valuable thing because the reason we don't see almost always when someone gets completely bamboozled in love or in anything, they say, well, looking back, I saw the signs. I just didn't see them or was too busy or didn't let it land or I was in denial.
Yeah.
So,
Or you didn't have evidence to prove it, so then you get gaslit and you think you're crazy.
yes, yes. And that's
Yeah.
why discernment, and today it's more because there's so much misinformation and so much misguidance. We need our discernment, our ability to tell truth from fiction by using our body as an antenna more than ever.
Yeah. When you think about entering relationships, I had a friend who used to be like, never let them have female friends. So, and we kind of talked about this in part one. How do you, when the biggest indicator of infidelity is opportunity, how do you allow your partner to have friends that could be an opportunity?
Yeah, it's tricky. I am not a particularly conservative person. But I think my views on this one are a little bit conservative. I wouldn't, go as far as your friend, but to an extent, because I don't believe, and I've been around too long and heard too many people's most intimate truths to not know this, that two heterosexual people can be friends, man and a woman, without one or the other of them, at least at some point, harboring a wish for more. I have yet to meet a pair of heterosexual friends, man and woman, where that isn't true.
I see that.
And that doesn't
But
mean they're
it
going to
doesn't mean that
cheat.
something has to happen,
Not
but
at
it
all.
means the opportunity is there if the circumstances are created for you to be vulnerable enough to say, F it.
Yeah. And that's why the communication, I think it's when I think about a fair proofing your relationship, Yes, there's a certain degree of limiting opportunities that needs to be part of it, but unless you're living in a bubble on a mountaintop, there are going to be opportunities. It's more about what is your level of integrity with each other and with the world around you? What is your level of communication? Are you able to communicate your needs? What is the level of tenderness, kindness, compassion between the two of you? And what is your level of um, really those people who struggle with addiction, and I'm not saying that if you're unfaithful, you have an addiction, but it's the same thing that we talked about in the last episode of what 90% of the time when we cheat, we're trying to distract ourselves from some sort of pain of I'm unattractive, I'm unwanted, I'm washed up, I'm unloved, I'm disconnected from myself. There's something inside there, right? So the more self-regulation and resilience you each have, the more attuned to yourself and the more able to communicate with each other you are, but the less likely you are to want to distract yourself with these other things.
So is there like a relationship test people should take? Like I feel like before you like say, all right, I'm gonna really like commit to this person, there should
Yeah.
be a test. First of all, a lie detector test too. So it's like this is what I'll put poor Athena through. Oh, you have a new boyfriend? Let's put him through the Maria test. And so like I feel like those are really important things and qualities to know about someone. Like, what is their integrity level? Like, if you're seeing them cheating or stealing or doing things that even they're teeny, teeny, teeny
Yeah.
things, those are red flags, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
What
That's
are
a
the
red
other
flag.
red flags you should pay attention
We'll
to?
have to make this test, Maria.
I really, no, I swear to God,
I know. We'll make it.
because it's really hard. Um, for so many of us, we all just want to love and be in a relationship and
Yeah.
have a family and all this stuff. And, you know, divorce rates are out crazy numbers now. And if we just had a test, I'll help you
Yeah.
develop it because I have lots of thoughts on this.
Yeah. I can
Um,
tell.
I think that if we had a test, it would help us have better discernment in
Yeah.
those moments where the love bombing and the excitement is there, right?
Yeah.
This is why people don't get prenups. This is why
Yeah.
all this stuff.
Yeah.
Like, I think that it would really, really help people to make a better decision. It doesn't mean they're going to maybe not go forward with it anyway, right? It's like when if you're in a relationship and someone comes and tells you, I think, he did this. At first, you're like all huffy puffy. And then you're like, no, you're wrong. I had a friend that I intervened, I remember in high school, and it was
Yeah.
like, oh, this happened. And they got mad at me.
Yeah.
And then
That's usually what happens. Shoot
I
the
never said
messenger.
anything ever again. So it doesn't mean that you won't go forward with the relationship, but at least you go forward with the knowledge that there are red flags to pay attention to rather than waking up one day and having it hit you in the face.
Yeah. Well, I think both are true, right? It's not just testing the other person. It's how, like we'll talk about this in our episode we do on codependence, but I was married for I was with this guy for 7 years, married to him for 3 uh, years before I met my permanent husband of 23 years. Um, but he was a complete sociopath and had an entire double life. But the reason he was showing me all the signs, the reason I refused to see them or acknowledge them or look past them was because I was such a ball of low self-worth and looking for my security and safety through someone else and felt like such crap about myself and had been taught such dysfunctional ideas about love that I thought that was normal. I thought it was better to be with the devil you knew. And I made all of these compromises inside myself, both not seeing things and excusing the things I saw because of, so I could have given him that test, and I still would have ended up with him. So I think it's both that you have to be in a place, if you want to pick someone, your picker is off, your sniffer is off. If you aren't in integrity with yourself, right? And if you don't feel good about yourself, you have to be every relationship you're in. I give my husband, he didn't find out. I didn't mean to keep it from him, but it was about 2 years ago when he heard me speaking to a group of people that he realized, he was like, I never knew that, because I hug him. We do this 15-second, 30-second, I don't know how long it is, but this long hug every morning. He usually wakes up first, and about 20 minutes later, I come downstairs and I give him this really big hug, heart to heart. But what I've always done, Miss Recovering Codependent, when I hug him, is I think to myself, I send love from my heart into his, and I say to myself, I choose you today. Because for me, being in choice, knowing that I can walk away from this relationship, and not that it won't be devastating and I'll be in a ball for a little bit, but I will recover, knowing that I'm in my power. I'm not
Ooh.
making compromises. I'm not trying to fit a square and a round peg in a square hole, bending myself into pretzels so that you'll love me or stay with me. I'm in my power. And so that has to be step one. And then you're looking for someone who takes feedback well, who is open to and invested in their own personal growth, because who they are at 25 is going to be totally different than who they are at 40, you know?
Yeah.
So they have to be willing to communicate and to grow and to evolve, not always at exactly the same pace at you, but alongside you, and to include you with that. Are they honest? Like you said, do you notice them lying to their boss all the time, or lying to their parents because they've never learned to speak their truth? They don't feel safe speaking their truth. They're not going to be able to speak their truth to you either. And in any relationship that the emotional stakes are high, right? So are they honest? Do they do shady things? And have they cheated before? Now, if they've cheated before, that doesn't mean you unequivocally write them off. But what you're looking for is, like, what did they learn from that? And what did they, how did they evolve? Did they go into therapy and realize that XYZ and they would never do that again, And what did they see growing up, right? Were their parents totally unfaithful, and how did that affect them? Because very often that gets internalized as a model.
Yeah, I wrote down modeling parents
Mm-hmm.
because I feel like, well, I don't know, how often are we modeling the parental relationship?
All the time,
Uh,
nonstop. I mean, the number one, and this is why I say to couples all the time, the greatest gift you can give your kids, if you're in a marriage, I mean, it doesn't mean if you're single that they'll be screwed. That's not what I'm saying. But I'd rather you be single and happy than in a relationship that is not modeling love, connection, communication, and even passion. And the best gift you can give your kids is a model of what a loving relationship looks like and feels like, because that's what they're going to expect. It's better to give them no model and be single than to give them a dysfunctional model.
yeah. Oh man, there's so much in there. Um, I I have so many things I want to go into, but we're gonna have to stop here, um, and come back for a whole other session in person, hopefully. Maybe we'll have created the test that, you know what, even if it isn't going to 100% work, I think it's helpful.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think this has been so, so helpful. Sex Magic, guys, if you have not already bought it, I would get it immediately. And I also really loved learning what that sex therapy is like, because every time I've heard it, I've always thought it was really strange. And, sex is so taboo as it is. Like, then having somebody tell me what to do would be awkward. But what you explained made a lot of sense, because it's just taking all that pressure away. I think it's really smart. And I really loved, learning about even just the masculine and feminine, and that it isn't about us being feminine so that they can be masculine, because that was kind of like I don't know, for me, when I went to the Tony Robbins seminar, it was like, oh, I have really adopted a lot of masculine qualities that's helped me, but I need to go into my feminine. And I remember Kevin saying, is like, you're so masculine or whatever. And I was like, oh, I don't get my nails done anymore. I don't do any of the stuff because it's not easy to fit into my schedule. And then I was like, oh, how am I going to do all of this? And then I realized, well, that's not really, that's just kind of external feminine.
Mhm.
There's more to being softer, lighter, less controlling, less, whatever. But that's hard. That's a hard thing that I think a whole other episode we could do on to really help people kind of land into their feminine in an appropriate way, um, without feeling like it's all the external stuff, I guess.
Yeah, and making room. You have to soften enough and make room enough for them to step into their masculine, but then they have to step into their masculine. And so it's a dance. It's a dance that every relationship has to do. It's not just every time something isn't working in a relationship, it's always a dance that the two of you are doing together, even if one of you is the quote unquote bad guy. Um, there's a dance. Every relationship is an ongoing dance.
Yeah, I also would love to talk about the masculine and how men are raised and how they don't have a lot of this kind of rearing that helps them be their solid
Mm-hmm.
masculine. There's like fake masculine, I feel like a lot of
Mm-hmm.
times.
Yeah.
So I think that would be really cool to explore too. All right, friends, I hope you enjoyed that conversation with Dr. Laura. Of course, her book is called Sex Magic. It is out June 24th. You can also listen to her podcast for love and sex advice. It's called The Language of Love. But definitely get the book, pre order it, and get back on your journey to reconnecting with whoever it is you want to reconnect with. And just for our Patreon members, we've got an extended bonus episode with Dr. Laura about the things women can do to spark more desire for sex in your relationship. If you feel like you have zero desire anymore, you are not alone. Dr. Laura is going to help us with that. But it's only if you are a Patreon member. So if you're not already, click the link in the show notes below and join us. Every month we're together. It's super fun. And we have incredible people that join us each month and help us through whatever it is they're an expert in. And it's a great community too. Okay, until next time, be nice people, make good choices, and be present.
Hey, Heal Squad. We have been on quite the journey together, and we're hearing from so many of you just how much this show is helping you heal and get better, and it makes us feel so good. We love, love, love it, and we just ask that you don't keep it to yourself. Spread the message and share the show or your favorite episode with your friends. And if you want to help us even more, you can leave us a 5-star rating and a comment on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, and follow us on Instagram at Heal Squad. You can also DM us anytime because we love connecting with you. And finally, you can also join us on Patreon for our monthly live heal events with world-class healers and ad-free episodes exclusive only to Patreon and our Super Heal Squad for as little as $10 a month. So go to patreon.com/Heal Squad to join. Getting better isn't easy, friends, but as I say all the time, it's a whole lot easier if we can do it together. We love you all so much, and we love doing this thing called life with you.
This podcast and all related content published or distributed by or on behalf of Maria Menounos or MariaMenounos.com is for informational purposes only and may include information that is general in nature and that is not specific to you. Any information or opinions expressed or contained herein are not intended to serve as or replace medical advice, nor to diagnose, prescribe, or treat any disease, condition, illness, or injury, and you should consult the healthcare professional of your choice regarding all matters concerning your health, including before beginning any exercise, weight loss, or healthcare program. If you have or suspect you may have a healthcare emergency, please contact a qualified healthcare professional for treatment. Any information or opinions provided by a guest expert or host featured within website or on company's podcast are their own, not those of Maria Menounos or the company. Accordingly, Maria Menounos and the company cannot be responsible for any results or consequences or actions you may take based on information or opinions.